Diving into your next act or wondering what's ahead? Enjoy life as you change your path and embrace your authentic self.
Join me as we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of making big changes in your life. New directions both personally and professionally. Shake things up. But don't worry, you are not alone. On each episode, we'll be sharing stories, providing valuable information, and introducing you to others navigating their next act. So let's get inspired.
This is a Candy Factory Convo, Life in the Next Act with Gail Shane.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life in the Next Act. Today, we are going to talk with Marissa Illingworth, investment advisor with Canon Capital. Marissa will be discussing the basics of retirement investing and what retirement really looks like today. Marissa will also cover the planning of retirement and how it fits each of us individually. Hello, Marissa.
Good evening, Gail.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Enjoying the winter. It's my favorite season, so I'm doing great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Marissa, can you share with our listeners a little about yourself and what led you to finance?
Sure. I went to undergrad at Millersville University. I got my first office job in a financial advisor's office where I was doing administrative support and learning about the industry. Previously, I had been an assistant manager at a bridal salon. I had done other internships with insurance companies and customer service firms. So I had really, I did my time in food service too. So I really had an understanding of different industries, and kind of my strengths were in operations and ultimately in helping people. Whether it was helping people find a wedding gown, plan their wedding, I really enjoyed that moment of helping someone reach their goal, which really fit with finance. So as I learned more about the industry, gained experience, I got several licenses. There's federal and state licenses for financial advisors. So I started getting those, and I learned that I really love seeing people get it. Like when the light bulb goes off and they reach that goal, they set a milestone, and then they hit it. Whether it's helping someone pay off student loans in full or reach a savings goal, it's just really empowering for me to see other people find that strength within themselves. So I'm really in finance, not just because I love spreadsheets, which I do, but because I really love the practical way that it can help people.
That's great. We all think about retirement, and then all of a sudden we get to retirement age. Some of us have prepared well, and many of us have not. Simply put, help.
Yeah, everyone should be thinking about retirement, whether you're in your 20s or your 50s or your 70s. It's a big question. I do investment advisory as well as retirement planning and just general budgeting. So I try to look at the whole picture before we get to retirement, is the best time to think about it. The first thing would be to work with someone that you really trust, and it might take a couple of meetings, or you might need to meet different people, but your CPAs, your attorneys, your financial advisors, it should be someone you trust and someone with experience, so that you're not, everyone has an opinion in your life. Your friends, your family might be very knowledgeable,
Sure.
but it's really important to have a experienced and trustworthy professional in your life. I would also say today is better than tomorrow for saving. Whether you have a lot in retirement savings or have none at all, you should start saving in retirement accounts, whether it's through an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k, or if it's on your own, if you're maybe self-employed or if your employer doesn't offer it. It seems daunting to get started, but once you start saving, it really adds up. So sounds a little oversimplified, but you really need to start saving for retirement yesterday. But if yesterday was ideal, today is still better than tomorrow.
Get tough.
Yeah, you do need to get tough on your own mentality as kind of the next step. Once the money has gone into your retirement savings, whether at work, they're taking it out of your paycheck, or if you're saving on your own, you need to remove it from temptation. I see a lot of people who get to a savings level, and it's different for everyone. They just reach a point where they feel like they have a lot or some or enough, and they save and they feel proud of themselves for saving. But then a bill comes up, like a medical bill, a home renovation, and then they start dipping into that retirement account, in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And it can be very tempting, but this is the worst time to start taking that money out. You really need to leave it in there until there's a need. You should be saving separately for those emergencies on the side. And that's, again, a part of a well-balanced financial kind of plan, is to have different areas that you're saving for. So you need to tell yourself, once I put it in there, I can't touch it. You should also adjust your expectations for retirement, if you're younger. I've heard a lot of younger people say, there's no such thing as retirement. If you're nearing retirement, you really need to think, what's feasible for my life? What does retiring mean for me? And that means like setting reasonable goals. The best goals are achievable, and they're hard goals. So it's nice to say I want to retire. It's better to say I want to have X in cash. I want to have a house this size. I want to live in this area. I want to leave this much to cover my heirs or my funeral expense. Or you might have other goals like traveling or something like that. I want to take one cruise per year, maybe not anymore. But you might set goals like that. It's much easier to say, I want to go to a different country every year, once a year, and spend $5,000 doing it. That's a better goal than saying I want to travel. So you need to be really tangible with your goals, which will make them more achievable. But no matter what, all of those are facets, whether you're, again, I'm going to say it a lot of times because I work with people of all ages, whether you're 18 or 80, you have to make a plan. I call it a fire drill or a lifeboat drill. No matter if you are left with debt or you're leaving behind millions, when someone around you passes away, or if you pass away, your loved ones are going to be overwhelmed. So you really need to walk through all the scenarios and practice. And the death part of retirement is not a fun thing to talk about, so I'm just going to lay it on the table. No one likes to think about it, but honestly, it could happen anytime, not necessarily in retirement. Some people get 0 years in retirement, some get 50 years. So you really need to think about your end-of-life plan, and you need to practice and walk through those scenarios, not how you pass, but what happens to what you leave behind and who you leave behind. And I think this is a great time to think about it, with just the pandemic is making us all really face our own mortality. So this is the year, this is the day that you need to get serious about making a plan.
So the fire drill, the lifeboat drill, that's the plan. Talk more about that.
Sure.
What are the
So,
steps that you recommend?
yeah, that's just saying, and it could be for death, or it could even be for severe disability, or it could even be as minor as if I lose a job, that kind of thing. So it's where you take your emergency situation and you kind of think through the domino effect. So, all right, what happens when my partner is deceased? Or what happens when I'm deceased? And it's equally important if you don't have a partner, for the record. You don't get off the hook. Even if, if it's just you, you have even more responsibility.
Right.
So you really need to teach your partner or a sibling or a friend or a close mentor, or you need a third-party professional like a financial advisor or a lawyer. You need to choose a point person who's going to be kind of the coach or the quarterback, handling all the moving pieces when this happens. So in my case, I'll just use my own example because I certainly have my own lifeboat drill. So if I pass away, I have a list of all of our accounts, and my husband knows where to find them. So he needs to know where to find that list. He needs to know how to log into the online accounts. He needs to know what bills are paid automatically, what bills are paid by check, online, however. So you need to have a list. And if you're the one who's been handling the finances, like I have, you have a responsibility to take stock of it and to teach your partner how to find it. You don't have to teach them to replace you, especially if it's like a third party, like an attorney or even an adult child or a close friend. You don't need to like spend hours and hours having them run your life while you're still able. But you do need to make a concise record, whether it's in a password managing software or a secure, electronic drive or a hard file, you need to have a list, and they need to know where it is so that they're not wasting time when they're stressed and overwhelmed looking for these things. So in my family, my father-in-law passed away of cancer. He was 60 years old.
I'm
He was
sorry.
still working. Well, thank you. That was several years ago, but these are the kind of things that shape my. That's why I'm so emphatic about this. It really is close to home. He had not organized his affairs, so we spent those first shocking days, and we had been as prepared as one can be. We had some time with the prognosis. But when you're in the middle of that, the last thing you want to do is be calling and going through your story 10 times with the bank and with the car insurance and with the mechanic and with the, I could go on and on. So it took us months to actually get documentation and get access to all of the websites and physical cards and things that kind of make up a life. So if he had even just made a list, like we were still waiting for things to come in the mail. Like we don't know what bill's going to come in and be due. So if there was even just a list of like, this is where my home insurance is, this is where my auto insurance is, this is, all of that, it would have saved us hours of stress and time and ultimately resources that you spend chasing this all down. So it's not fun. It's not fun to think about, but you have to do it. And if you're the person who hasn't been handling it in the relationship, you have a responsibility to ask. You have to say, hey, I'm going to be left with it. I appreciate you doing this for me now, but I need to know what I don't know. And what that'll help you identify is your knowledge gaps. So if you're the person who hasn't been handling it, you need to say, hey, I'm never going to be able to handle our investments like you are. So you need to identify your third person. So if you pass away and I have to handle all this, who can I trust? Who can I turn to? And then you can make that decision with your partner before the worst happens, which is the goal. So that's kind of my lifeboat drill is walk through it. Think through the fallout. Think through what you have and where it is and make an inventory. I know it's awkward. I know it can be hard, but you have to do it.
And you mentioned a partner, a friend, a sibling, a professional,
Yep.
or it could also be an adult child.
Yeah, of course.
So, it just depends on your marital status or
Of
your
course.
partner status.
Yeah, I mean, there are married couples who just want to choose a child because, maybe if you've been married for a very long time and you lose a spouse, it's very difficult to handle these things, even if you have prepared. So if you've been married, I've had clients who've been married 30, 40, 50 years. If one of you passes, it's not probably feasible for you to handle it anyway. You should probably have a trusted person to be the kind of point person. And that's not to say they get everything. It's just to say that they are responsible for taking stock, making sure the bills continue to get paid, making sure nothing goes into default, making sure everything gets filed. It's pretty much like the executor of your will.
Right.
But it's very important, and it can be anyone. You just have to really stop and think who's going to be there.
And start that list of,
Yes.
of where things are and how to find them and
Yes,
that
and keep it
password,
updated.
management.
If you change companies, you're going to have to change your list. So make sure you do it every year would be a good thing, whether it's every new year or
It's great.
every wedding anniversary or every birthday. You just pick a time where you update your lists and everything and make sure it stays up to date.
Very good advice. Fire drill or lifeboat drill.
Absolutely.
You talked about this earlier. Can you give us some advice on planning retirement with an employer plan and a self-employed plan? Is there a formula that you use for that?
Sure. Yeah, we'll get back on track with the more relevant stuff for all of us who are still lucky to be
It's
here.
all good.
Employer-sponsored plans would be like a 401k, a 403b, a simple IRA, a SEP. These are just different kinds. It's something an employer has to set up, and they run it through payroll. They'll often offer you some sort of match or contribution. So a 401k might say, okay, we'll contribute half of what you put in up to 3%. So you have to put in 6%, and then we'll give you 3%. So that is the best place to start. We always recommend that you start with an employer-sponsored plan if it's available to you. And the reason is if they're matching you, some will match you 1-for-1. That's doubling your money. You're not going to get that anywhere else. So it's always worth it to start there. After that, you are able to open your own IRA or Roth. How much you contribute might be tax deductible or not, depending on your income. Self-employed people should definitely work with an advisor to determine which type of plan they can use. It depends on your tax status and your business setup and that kind of thing. But there's often ways for you to contribute a little bit more pre-tax and deduct it on the business or personal return. So it's definitely important to understand that there are different account types available to you. And then after that, we just say, start with anywhere you're getting a match and then go on to your pre and post-tax retirement savings. It's not a hard formula. It's just kind of order of priorities.
And when it comes to IRAs, what type of retirement account should we have? The traditional or the Roth?
So IRAs and 401ks are both examples of pre-tax retirement accounts. I have to kind of just go through this as a disclosure, since I am an investment advisor. I'm not legally allowed to give you tax advice, so you should always refer to your own personal tax advisor for your exact circumstance. I also want to break it down because I'm not sure if people are very familiar with these types or not at all familiar. So I'm going to pretend that everyone needs the same information, and we're going to start with the basics. Your pre-tax means that you save a little bit on taxes now because the money you put in to either your IRA or your employer-sponsored 401k gets taken out of your taxable income. When you go to withdraw it, it's subject to your then current income tax rate. So typically, we recommend you would put into this type of account when you're in a higher tax bracket. So you're working, maybe you're in the middle of your career, maybe you're a doctor or a lawyer, and you're in a very, very high tax bracket because your income is high. So by putting $10, $20, whatever $1,000 into your 401k, that money gets taken off of your taxable income, which saves you paying 25% income tax on it. So that's a good thing. So IRAs are great when you're in a higher tax bracket. Now, Roths and Roth 401ks are after tax. So what that means is you pay income tax on the money today. It's your take-home pay. You do all your federal income tax. It's your net paycheck in your bank account. And after that, it goes into your retirement account. So you've paid your current income tax rate on it, but it grows free of tax. So when you take it out, a Roth is not taxed on withdrawal. So if you're in a low tax bracket now, like people under, generalizing, people under 40 are typically making less. They're in the beginning stage of their career. Or if you just mentally believe that tax rates will be higher by the time you retire because taxes only go up, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like if you are betting that you're paying 20% today, but in 20, 30 years, you're going to be paying 40% income tax, then it's a good strategy to use the Roth. If, that's paying the taxes now, I know what the taxes are, I'm going to pay it, bank it, and never have to pay income tax on that again. So that's a benefit for most people. Most people should have a little bit of both. And then there's a third type, which is taxable, which would not be retirement. This is just your savings and investment accounts. I've got some money in savings and I want it to be growing. Brokerage investment accounts are also after tax. They're net pay. Their growth is also taxed as capital gains every year. So it's worse than a Roth in that sense. You utilize these after you've made the maximum contribution to your retirement accounts, or if you're just saving for a nearer term goal and you need the money before retirement, because the IRAs and Roths do have age limits on when you can start taking money out. A really well-balanced portfolio, and what I would always, I'll not say always or never, because those are bad words, but what I typically recommend would be having a little bit in each bucket because they suit different needs. So a good, well-balanced plan will have a little bit in everything: pre-tax, post-tax, investments, both. So the answer is both, one or the other, or neither. Just make sure you talk to someone and make a plan.
So is a well-balanced portfolio always encouraged at any stage of retirement investing?
Diversification, or a diverse portfolio, refers to investing in stocks, bonds, and cash.
Okay.
Most people use vehicles like an ETF or a mutual fund to purchase many, many companies and indexes. In the good old days, you used to have to go buy a single stock for a single company and a single bond, like a coupon bond for one bank or one person. These days, you purchase like a US large cap equity fund or a intermediate term bond fund, and that way you're spreading out your risk because you're buying lots of little things, little pieces of many things. So it's always important to have a balance between those three buckets. Again, stocks, bonds, and cash. The exact level of risk depends on your age and your comfort level. If you were retiring in April of 2020 and you had to take money out because you're retiring and it's your income, if you were heavily invested in stock or equities, you would have had a 20% drop when the market dropped. So aggressive investors would have time to recover from that. 2 to 10 years it could take to recover from that kind of drop. So if you're aggressive, you probably shouldn't be withdrawing money relatively soon. So typically when you're nearing retirement, such as age 50 and up, people will be more like 20, 30, 40% in stocks, and a lot more of their portfolio, that other 80, 70, 60% of their portfolio will be in the bonds, which are more stable value, still a little bit of risk, but a little bit more stable than equities, which can go, as we've seen, they can go kind of anywhere.
So you're always looking and always keeping up. And, that's why people need an advisor unless they can do it on their own. But
Yeah, you certainly can. You just have to think, and the mentality is also, doesn't matter what age you are. I've got people in their 30s who are very afraid of losing money, so they're just conservative right now. So they're never going to have more than 50% in stocks. You've got people nearing retirement who might have other cash, or maybe they have income properties where they're saying, well, I'm not going to need to withdraw these accounts for another 5 to 10 years, so let's be more aggressive. So you really have to gauge your comfort level. Am I comfortable seeing that statement be, 20% less than it was last month? That could happen.
Marissa, what are the biggest or most asked questions that you get from your clients?
It's a long list. We'll start with, I have $0. How do I retire? They might be 50, they might be 60, but it's just, I have nothing. How do I retire? Teach me how. Unfortunately, there is no magic pill to triple your money. Sometimes people will kind of talk themselves into a big gamble on a higher risk investment because they feel they are further behind, so they need to make up more. It might work out, I suppose. Everyone gets lucky now and then, but the odds are not in your favor. You should just make a balanced plan. You should start saving now, like I talked about initially. You should make a strict budget, and you should consider trimming your living expenses while you still have a full-time or part-time income so you can save more. That's the hard truth. You're not really going to triple your money in a safe plan. You should also look into your employer health care if you have it and look at your coverages. You might be covered under a high deductible health plan and could be utilizing an HSA to save money for retirement health care costs. And you should really think, okay, if I have $0 saved, I'm 55. Where's that 50,000 a month or year going to come from? Whatever you're used to living on. So you need to start thinking. Another big question that I get asked is, how much money do I need to retire? So people from 20 to 50 ask me this question: how much money can I just kind of check out and retire? There's no hard number, and there's no math that can really tell you that number. 500,000 could last you for 2 years, or it could last you for 20 years. No one knows how long you're going to live after retirement, and nothing is guaranteed. So you need to think, are you intending to sustain your $120,000 a year lifestyle for 20 years? Because that's going to take a lot more than $500,000. If you're used to the house with a big yard, a lot of property, eventually at some point you will need to pay someone to take care of the lawn, to shovel the snow. You're going to have to fix a big roof. You're going to have a lot more costs there. And the lifestyle in your later, successful career years is going to be very difficult to sustain. So you need to think about, if you have $500,000 now, inflation will make that $500,000 worth less than $500,000 if it's not invested. So you really have to think and make some hard choices. You should work with someone and assess other income streams like Social Security, pensions, rental incomes, alimony, whatever is available to you, and you need to compare that to your base budget. I hope everybody has heard of budgets and has some idea of a budget, and perhaps this is extra noise that you've already heard a bunch of times, but you really need to identify how much monthly income are you going to have to make up in retirement savings after those other sources. So in a simple scenario, if you just have Social Security, and you can get estimates of your Social Security income on the Social Security Administration website at any time, and I highly encourage you to do so. Once you have that estimate of monthly income, okay, if that's $2,000 and I'm expecting to live on $6,000 a month, where is that other four coming from? So now we have software that can help us identify, what's the present value of a future income stream and that kind of thing. So it is a little bit of math in that sense, but we can kind of back into a number and say, well, if we need this much monthly, how much do we invest now? What rate of return does it have to earn for 10, 20 years, however much time you have? And we can try and help you come up with a number. Most people are shocked at how high the number is, which kind of leads me into my next point.
Well, it is math, Marissa. It's simple math. What is retirement today?
This is really kind of the same answer I have for how much money do I need to retire. Retirement is not a finish line. You are going to reach 65, 67, 72, and you might be surprised to find out that you are exactly the same person that you were a year ago. There's going to be new goals. There's going to be new finish lines on the horizon. There's going to be new things that you want to do with your life. But people think magically one day they'll wake up, they'll clock out, they'll get home, and it'll all be roses. But what do you really want to do in retirement? Most people that I ask don't say nothing. They say they want to spend time with family. Maybe they have a hobby like woodworking or lawn. Maybe they love to garden, or there's hobbies that they're passionate about that they're delaying doing until they can retire. So I would challenge you and say, if you're waiting until retirement to do something like that you enjoy, perhaps you could work some balance in today where you work less of your day job and you start your side job so that mentally you could sustain your career a little bit longer part-time. So that could improve your work-life balance. That could continue your income a little bit longer than you expected. And honestly, it would help you kind of get a feel, is this part-time thing something I really want to do in retirement, or do I need to be thinking again? Because nobody travels 100% of the time. Nobody hangs out with the grandkids 100% of the time. Everybody has downtime. And especially when you've been working full-time for a long career, it can be very overwhelming and disorienting to have nothing to just wake up and go do, even if you hate your job. So I challenge people to really think, when you say retirement, what does that mean to you? When you say, how much money do I need to retire? What does that lifestyle mean to you? And why are you waiting? And what can you bring in today? Because it's going to look different for everyone. But most people, I see them answer in their 40s. They say, I'm going to quit this job I hate. I'm going to finally spend time with my family. It's like, well, I want to work part-time. So really think realistically, and that base budget I mentioned is a big helpful thing. If you have fixed expenses that you have to meet, that's a good starting place to see really how much work do I need. Maybe I can work a quarter time and cover all my fixed expenses. So ask those questions, and it's going to be a hard conversation. If you and your partner are not seeing eye to eye on it, don't just walk away and let it happen. It'll be a disaster. You should have a third party, whether it's a counselor or an advisor, and you need to have someone help you figure out what your priorities are. Because I would guess that most of us could start having that lifestyle we want. Maybe you rent an apartment in different states and stay with your different children different times of the year. Or maybe you have two homes and you split your time and you work seasonal jobs to help travel. Maybe you downsize to a tiny home. I don't know what it is, but I'm guessing there are things you haven't even thought of. So I would really challenge everyone to just really stop and get realistic, and just sky's the limit.
So when planning for retirement, is it important to think about universal or term life insurance?
It is. Insurance is an important piece of your plan. Everyone has a different need based on their family and the other assets they might have. It's a very important part of the lifeboat drill that I was talking about earlier. Again, when you pass, who are you going to leave behind? And what are they going to need? So, like if you're leaving behind a mortgage or two mortgages or children who might need to go to college, those are needs that you would want to cover with your passing. So term insurance covers you for a flat dollar amount as long as you're paying the premiums, which is for a set term, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Whole life or universal life have a small investment balance that grows as well. Because of this, the insurance isn't like a guaranteed retirement income stream. It's not, you're going to see a lot of advertisements that say, buy insurance and it'll pay you for life. It's not strictly true. It won't pay medical bills while you live unless you purchase like a very custom policy for that exact. You can purchase cancer policies, you can purchase accidental death, that kind of thing. So the cost will vary a lot depending on your age and your health whenever you apply. It can be very costly to start a policy in your 50s, 60s, and 70s because they're using mortality, which is how likely are you to pass away at any given age. Unfortunately, that's exactly what insurance is protecting you against, and the older you are, the more likely it is to occur. They consider factors like your gender and your health history. You do have to do a physical exam. So if you have underlying health conditions and you're older, it could be much more expensive to get $100,000 of coverage. If you're young, it might be very affordable. You could maybe get $500,000 in coverage for a couple $100 a year. So you need to think about it. If you're in retirement, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it might be very expensive. It might not be the best use of your money. But do consider, what would a surviving partner, children, family, what would they actually need if you passed? So hopefully when you're younger, those needs are greater. You've still got mortgages, maybe student loans. So typically younger people would have a little bit more coverage because if you pass when you're younger, there's a lot more lost income earning years. When you're a little older, hopefully you have less debts. Hopefully your survivor would just need to pay for your funeral and any outstanding little things. So it might be that you're 60 and you only need 50,000, and that might be very possible. So definitely talk to a professional. There's a lot of different life insurance products, so make sure you read whatever they present you because they all work a little differently.
It's a lot of information and it's a lot of math and a lot of communication and a lot of numbers. On a personal note, Marissa, which nonprofit organization is meaningful to you and why?
Well, I'm passionate about the arts. Even though I'm in finance, I grew up doing choir, theater, ballet, just everything. And the Fulton Theater in Lancaster City is truly the highest caliber theater around. It's absolutely a professional theater quality on a regional scale. We're very lucky to have them in our community. I'm a seasoned subscriber. I love attending their events, and they're always in need of support. They actually give back through educational programs to students. But during COVID, more than ever, they really need to sustain just the rent and the lights and everything else, let alone they're expanding their building to increase their capabilities. So they're really in need. So you can actually contribute to their Lifeline Fund online, which will keep them open, hopefully, through the pandemic. But it's really meaningful to me because I really believe that arts shaped me and gave me the ability to see things from different perspectives and appreciate, just like finance, I appreciate the human side of finance as well as the numbers on paper. So I credit the arts with a lot of our culture, and I really love seeing it here in Lancaster.
I enjoy the Fulton as well. And it's the oldest working theater in the United States. Yeah. And the shows are phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Marissa, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your knowledge. You can reach Marissa at 215-723-4881 or imobileinvest.com. I'd like to leave you with this. Be strong, but not rude. Be kind, but not weak. Be bold, but not bully. Be humble, but not timid. Be proud, but not arrogant. Join us next time as we aim to inspire, empower, and inform. Life in the Next Act is a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective. You can find the show streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And you could subscribe to the audio version anywhere you get your podcasts.
Gail has experienced many acts over the years. Living a full life, she is a mother of 2 and grandmother of 3, and currently calls Lancaster, PA home. An entrepreneur at heart, she's owned several businesses, hosted a popular radio show, and has written for prominent publications highlighting nonprofits. While she holds her real estate license in Florida and PA, she believes her true calling is giving others a voice.
Learn more about Gail at gailshane.com. Life in the Next Act is produced by the Candy Factory Collective at the Candy Factory Coworking Campus in Lancaster, PA. Production support by Jason Mundok and Anna Tran. Administrative support by Ann Kirby, Arianna Henderson, and Krisha Martzell. Notes and links can be found on the show post at our website, candyfactorycollective.com. Candy Factory.